Hello, everyone. And thanks for joining us for our first episode of In It to Vin It. I'm Genna.
I'm Vashti.
And we're going to start by telling you, I guess, a little bit about the show and how it came to be. You might be wondering why we're doing a show about Vin Diesel. You will understand as we go along in our show. So first of all, welcome to Pop Culture Co-op. If you're new here, Pop Culture Co-op is a space, a Twitch stream for women and gender non-conforming individuals to talk about pop culture and learn about how to do things like Twitch. It's a safe place to learn and grow in this and to talk about, pop culture in ways that we don't often get to talk about. Started by Dara, who is Hebraham Lincoln and is here in the chat. Thank you, Dara. And so this show came to be because she and I were talking. She was telling me all about this cool idea she had. And she was like, what is one thing you could talk about forever? And the truth is, I could probably talk about many things forever. But Vin Diesel is one of those things. And Vashti and I watched all of the Fast and Furious movies earlier in the pandemic. And so that's where like our overlap of our love for Vin Diesel comes from. Yeah, what do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Why we're doing this together? I mean, we're a couple. We live together. What else am I going to do on a Sunday night? But when you were talking to Dara about this show, and we were sort of brainstorming. I remember being in the kitchen. We were like brainstorming, like what could the title be? We've gone through a couple of different title changes since then, but I also remember being across the table. We're like eating dinner at the time, and I was like, "So, do you be a co-host? Do you want a co-host? Are you thinking you're gonna have guests? Like, what was the most, I guess, like passive way I could express interest in doing this show with you?" I think you helped by like actually just making me say it out loud of like, I would love to co-host with you. I would love to talk about Vin Diesel, since we did spend the first couple of weeks of quarantine like just deep diving into the Fast and Furious franchise, which it was my first time really watching through. I had no idea that I thought it was just a weird thing that you liked, and then found out like, oh, it's a weird thing that I also really like and want to be able to talk about too.
I'm so glad I could share this joy with you. So one of the things that we're going to do throughout our, ideally, ultimately, we're going to have guests, right?
Yeah.
Today, first episode, just two of us, get you used to what the show is. But what we want to talk about with all of our guests is like, why do you care about Vin Diesel? What's your history with Vin Diesel?
Yeah, just like take a moment to get a little intimate.
Oh, I also know that's the first time I'm hearing that. It's real good. Well, thank you.
You're so welcome.
So for me, I have loved, we are checking the chat, Bolshi, just so you know. I am reading the chat as we go. Welcome, everybody. I see a bunch of our friends here. Miriam, who is talking about how they tried to make us some art, and it's really does look like a crossover between Patrick Stewart and Vin Diesel, which I am here for. But yeah, anyway, so welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Miriam, so glad you waved. So glad you're good at technology. So my history of Vin Diesel is that I saw the first Fast and Furious movie when I was probably 13 and loved it. Really, truly, deeply loved it. And then, sort of continued to watch Fast and Furious. And then when I was like 19, I think, maybe 20, I did this deep dive of all of the Riddick movies, Triple X movies, one summer with a friend of mine. We really went hard on Vin. He's kind of Vin Diesel. and his name is Pete Sykes, and he's like just this like muscly man who's also like truly very soft, uh, like Vin Diesel. And yeah, and I just like truly have loved Vin Diesel since I was 13. And then also in college, all of my friends were really into Fast and Furious movies, and we would go see them together when they came out of theaters. And so it just sort of continued to like bolster my already existing love for Vin. Um, and the more I learn about him, the more I love him. And you will all get to hear all the facts that I have in my brain and my heart about Vin Diesel throughout the show. We will not tell you all of them today, because then why would you come back? But yeah. So tell me about your love and your history of love for Vin Diesel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my love and my history of love, I would say, is fairly recent. Did it start with our marathon? Maybe. But I remember, like, same time when the Fast and Furious movies were coming out, like my parents were like, loved the Fast and Furious movies. They watched Triple X. Like my parents are people like who went to the movies, which makes it maybe extra funny or interesting that I am somebody who is a part of this pop culture co-op, and my pop culture references are so minimal. I haven't seen so many movies. So like I didn't see Fast and Furious. I remember seeing clips of it. I remember seeing clips of Triple X. I don't even know if I saw clips of Chronicles of Riddick, but so like I knew Vin Diesel was a person in the world, and maybe that was the limit for it, until I think the one of like the more prominent memories for me was actually seeing, like, a couple years ago, maybe like it must be like 7 years old now, this video where Vin Diesel you may or may not know, he was the first celebrity to have over 100 million followers on Facebook, but that because he is somebody who shares a lot about himself with the world through social media. And I remember that somebody that I peripherally knew through, like, in college, was a big fan of him, and reposted a video of him dancing to Katy Perry's Dark Horse. And I hope that at some point we can show that clip on here, or if we can't, then I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do a quick search for Vin Diesel dancing to Dark Horse. It is the most incredible video I've ever seen. I'm so glad I actually got to introduce you to that, because it is something that's like years old, but you hadn't seen. And like I only just introduced it to you.
It's so good.
And so I think like that was really like the extent of my knowledge of Vin Diesel, and like who he is as a person until earlier this spring when we were watching Fast and Furious. And like when we are watching movies, I'm somebody who does a lot of like, I wonder about this person, that like this cast member, or I wonder about like this story arc or location or something random when I'm watching a movie. And so I started doing a bit of a deep dive into Vin Diesel and Paul Walker and like all of those cast members, R.I.P. Paul Walker. And yeah, so I think like it is a newfound love, but that doesn't mean it's not deep. It is a deep love.
I will tell you all that today, this morning, we were like sitting in bed, we were sort of prepping for the show, we were just like looking at past Vin Diesel things, learning a little bit more, and I really got to witness this like deeper and deeper love happen, where Vashti just kept like learning more things and falling deeper into love with Vin Diesel. And as somebody who has been in love with Vin Diesel for many years, it was really, truly beautiful. But there are just like so many beautiful, gentle facts about him.
Yeah. I mean, it would not be an exaggeration to say that I nearly cried multiple times today just watching videos of him being who he is on the internet and in the world.
That's really accurate. Also, I will say, like yesterday, I went to, so, there's 7 of you on here. You probably mostly know me, but I broke my ankle like 2 months ago. I went to PT yesterday for the first time, and I was telling my PT about this show, and I told her about Pop Culture Co-op, and she was like, "How does Vin Diesel play into this? I don't really understand." And I was like, "Well, let me tell you about Vin Diesel." And as I told her about Diesel, she like started to be like, "Oh, oh, what a guy." And I was like, "I know." And really the thing is like Vin Diesel, and we're going to talk about this as we talk about the Iron Giant, but Vin Diesel really is like this person that people think about as like this muscly action hero guy. And like that is who he is, but he's also just such a softie. He is like truly such a little toasted marshmallow on the inside. Yes, Hammy. I think that you will all fall in love with him as you come on this journey with us because, yeah, cinnamon roll. Because he's so sweet and so gentle and such a weirdo that, like, he's hard not to love.
Yeah. And such a big fucking nerd.
Such a big fucking nerd. My favorite fact, which I'm going to tell you now because it's, like, truly my favorite fact, is that Vin Diesel has been playing D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, for over 20 years. He literally wrote the intro for the anniversary hit like textbook for Dungeons and Dragons. He
made a movie that was based off of his D&D character.
He made a movie based off his D&D character. Other movies in his career are not about his specific character, but are connected to his love for D&D. Like, we will talk about these as we get into those specific movies, but he's such a big fucking nerd. He's such a big fucking nerd. He played D&D once with Dame Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench, what I would give to be in that D&D game. Ugh, I love him so much. So the format of the show, right, is that each episode we are going to review or we're going to watch and then talk about a Vin Diesel movie. We are going roughly in career order. So like we're starting pretty early on and we're going through. We are being selective so that we can capture some of the bigger hits now and then we'll go back if we keep going. So today we're going to talk about the Iron Giant. He did do things before the Iron Giant. I want to name that, although not that many. This is one of the biggest movies he did early in his career. And so eventually we'll have some guests who love Vin Diesel as much as we do, or who just want to do this anyway. So like, you know, if you feel like you want to talk about Vin Diesel, you're unsure about him, come on, you can come on the show where we welcome you.
Yeah.
So yeah. Should we start talking about the Iron Giant?
Sure.
Bolshe, yes, the Iron Giant. So I had seen it before, but maybe once and definitely a long time ago.
Yeah, I, as mentioned earlier, I haven't seen so many movies. This was my very first time watching Iron Giant. So it was like I didn't have a lot of expectations going into it, aside from like I had done some research on it to get ready for this show. And yes, that was the thing that I knew. Coffee was like, oh, everything I'm reading is going to say that I will cry in this movie. And especially as somebody who easily cries in movies, like we just finished watching all of Star Wars, and I cried. I just like sobbed during like the entirety of Rise of Skywalker. That's what it's called?
Yeah,
Rise of Skywalker. And have been known to sob my way through Rogue One as well. I was shocked that I didn't actually cry during Iron Giant.
You got pretty close.
Yeah, I totally got close. I could see how in a different context I would definitely cry, maybe if I wasn't taking notes at the time, and like really trying to pay attention. I probably would have cried, but I mean, it does. It really like gets you
right in the feels,
right in the feels, right at those heartstrings. Yeah.
I mean, It's really interesting, right? Because it's like, first of all, many people do not know that Vin Diesel voiced the giant, which is also a great fact. Um, and they chose Vin Diesel because he had a deep voice that could also carry emotion, which I love. Um, and really, it's like, oh no, a drive-in. I can't even imagine coffee. And it is like, I mean, rewatching this movie, I was like, this movie is really just about this adult trying to ruin the life of a child. And I recognize that that's not what it's actually about. There's a lot of political themes, Cold War things, some xenophobia happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's like very much like an anti-war tale, right? Like it's based off of a book or like a novella type of thing. Originally called The Iron Man, but when they made it into a movie, couldn't really call it Iron Man, and so went for Iron Giant instead. Yeah, set in Maine.
Yeah.
Or at least the Iron Giant is set in Maine. The novella itself is like somewhere else, rural. It's very important that it's
Small
like rural,
town,
though.
small town.
Yeah.
Yeah, very rural. But so like, you know, the idea of the Iron Giant is that it's like this machine and you don't know a lot about it, but it's like very tough, right? Literally made of metal. He's a metal man, as they talk about. And it is, you know, he's just supposed to be this like hard shell. And throughout the movie, you see him sort of become a little bit softer as he learns from this child, which is really sweet.
Yeah, little Hogarth.
Little Hogarth.
Little Ginger Hogarth. I think it's really interesting that there are 3 characters in this movie that are redheads, which it just feels like there's not that many, like, for there to be like 3 main characters.
Let me be clear, I love a ginger. So
it did feel like it was tailor-made for you in that respect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I also, you know, like, first of all, it's been so long since I've seen it that I was, you know, the first few minutes of the movie, I spent being like, who is the actor who plays the mom? Who is it? Who is it? And then finally I realized it's Jennifer Aniston. It is a star-studded cast, right? We've got Jennifer Aniston, we've got Harry Connick Jr., we have Chris, what's his face, who plays the FBI or whatever agent.
Yeah, the guy who's always like an evil dad.
Yeah, that guy. And then Vin Diesel, who was not a star at this time. He was like 32, by the way. Beginning of his career, he, before this, had done a short film which he wrote, produced, directed, and starred in, which we will talk about in another episode. He would have had a small supporting role in Saving Private Ryan. He had one other role. He had like done very little, and a friend of his like recommended him for this, and the director and the writer loved him because what's not to love. So yeah, this was like kind of the start of his career at 32, which I would say like is a big deal, right? I think I just listened to a different podcast with a different actor talking about how like getting your first big break in your mid 30s is really challenging. So, you know, Vin had been like really working for it.
Yeah.
Also, FYI, Vin Diesel, not his real name.
Mark Sinclair.
Mark Sinclair. And he has a twin.
Twin Diesel.
Twin Diesel. Not real name. Also, his mother is an astrologist. Love that for him.
I mean, should we talk about like how this movie starts? Like,
yeah.
Where?
Lead us into it.
Yeah, totally. So we have the Iron Giant. It's like, so
Cammy, he's 53 now. He is 53. He looks amazing. When we watched a video from right around this time, right before, he looked so young because now he does not look 53. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Ageless. Not ageless, but
no,
like.
But he does not look 53.
Delayed aging.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So this movie, it opens up with I think we see like something flying in from space, presumably Iron Giant. And then it cuts to this scene in a diner.
Well, first we're in the ocean, right? He comes into the ocean. There's like a ship that crashes. That's important.
Oh. Okay. Sure. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So then it cuts to the scene in the diner. Bunch of Mainers talking about weird things that are happening, like on their properties, where like cars are being chomped into, or somebody's tractor got has a big bite out of it, and they're sort of, or they've seen like destruction in the woods, like stuff like that, trying to figure out like what could this be. There's it again, it's like during Cold War, like there's a lot of talk about like, is it Sputnik, is it something, some sort of like something from the Russians, and it's where we also get introduced to Hogarth, who is the main character, the child, or the kid, the kid who's in there. And we see that he is a kid who has a lot of imagination, but is also very lonely, has presumably no friends, except for what is it, like it's a squirrel?
Yeah, he captures a squirrel that he's like, Mom, can I have a pet? And she's like, they're trying to rent a room in their house. And she's like, no pets. Nobody wants to live with pets. We can't have a pet. And he's like, but, and then the squirrel has run away. Where we then find our next character, right? So we've got Mom, we've got kid, and we get our next character who the squirrel has run up the leg of the pants of this guy. Random guy in the diner, seems sort of like very aloof.
Very beatnik. He has his black turtleneck and like not sunglasses, but glasses.
No, I think they're sunglasses. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Harry Connick Jr. And he is like trying to be real chill. We hear behind him this older man who's like, this thing from space came down in, my boat or whatever. And that's the guy who we had seen in the opening scene in the ocean. Anyway, so he's like supporting that guy, and our Hogarth is like, oh my God, you saw it too. And he's so excited. And Harry Connick Jr. is like, no, I just, we got to stand up for those guys, because if we don't, who will? Which is a very heartwarming.
Well, the line, this is how you know this guy, his name is Dean, is a good guy, because his first like prominent line of dialogue outside of this, like, oh yeah, totally saw it, like agree with this person, is like, if we don't stick up for the kooks, who will? And it's like, okay, we know that this is going to be a character, because also then he starts talking to Hogarth's mom, and there's like a little connection, and so we know that he's going to be like a character in this movie.
So okay, so we make it, whatever, they go home, it's fine. Later that night or the next night, Hogarth is home alone, and he is watching a movie.
He's filling up Twinkies with whipped cream from a can.
The TV gets all funny. He goes to the roof of the house,
casual,
by himself at night to check the antenna, which feels a little risky. And it's the antenna is missing, so he's like, gotta go to the woods. It's Maine. It's whatever year it is.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this kid, what is this kid doing?
Yeah. I don't know. Well, so then he goes into the woods, right? And he's like trudging along, because, maybe it's that he must have seen something, right? Because like he gets to, there's like the light from this power station. And so he's like going towards the power station, gets there, and then all of a sudden it goes dark. Or no. Mm-mm. Something happens.
Vin Diesel shows up. I mean, Iron Giant shows up.
Vin Giant shows up. Iron Vin shows up, gets tangled up in the power lines, and is presumably dying.
Yeah, getting electrocuted.
Yeah.
And this kid is like,
oh no,
what the fuck? But also is like, gotta save this giant robot. Mm-hmm. And does. Saves the giant robot. And then his mom shows up and is like, we gotta go home. Why were you in the woods by yourself in the middle of the night? Which is a great question. Why were you in the woods by yourself in the middle of the night? He's like maybe 10.
Yeah. I was also surprised that like she found him
How did she find
immediately.
him? How did she find him? How did she know where to look? She's like driving along and all of a sudden she's right there. He's right there. How did that happen?
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, she takes him home, whatever. But the thing about her too is like, she's a single mom. She's like working really hard, but she really does not give him the time of day. He's like, there's a giant robot. She's like, yeah, you need to stop talking. And I'm like, you literally just found your kid in the middle of the woods. Like maybe figure out what's going on there. Why was he in the middle of the woods? Anyway, she's like, takes him home. She's like, nope, keep your mouth shut.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that like she's as dismissive as like as we sometimes see parents being in cartoons, right? Where it's just like, huh, nothing. We're not going to talk about this. Like she does not want to talk about it, but like I think she's really portrayed with like this weariness. I think in it that it just feels different than like how we see parents just being like, but I have no imagination and like I don't care about what my kids care about. She's just like, I'm fucking tired and like I actually can't. I don't have the capacity to do this. And like because I have all these other things. I'm like trying to rent out this room, trying to make sure that like we stay afloat. I don't know. There was something that felt really notable in that difference for me.
Yeah. But so I mean, I think you're right. I think she's also like, I came home, my kid was missing, which like fair. I guess you'd be a little worried. So
she was panicked. Like you saw her in the house. She's just like, Hogarth, like where are you? Like she was like an escalation of panic.
So the next day, right? She's like goes to work presumably, and he's like, gotta go back to woods, find this robot. And this is when we get quality Vin Diesel time, because he sets up this whole thing, tries to take a picture to like make sure it's real, and the robot comes and he starts mimicking him, which is like very cute, very childlike. And he tries to get him to talk, and this is the first time we see the Iron Giant talk. Also,
it's like maybe the first time he's ever tried to talk.
Well, yeah, he doesn't know how to talk before this.
Yeah.
And Hogarth is like, let me teach you how to talk. And it's very like basic, right? Like rock and tree.
And blah, blah, blah.
And blah, blah, blah. And you like start to see his like mouth sort of unhinged. And he clearly doesn't know anything about where he's come from, or like he doesn't remember anything.
Oh yeah, because he has like that dent in his head, and like Hogarth even points it out, it's like, oh, he's lost his memory. He has no idea like what is going on because he knocked his head. Yeah,
and so it's really interesting, right? Like this movie starts with very childlike. I mean, even the robot, this giant metal robot, is very childlike. And you hear Vin from the moment he talks, with this like deep, grovelly voice, and yet it's still like very soft and full of wonder, very childlike. There's a lot of sensitivity in the voice. I'm just saying that's why they hired him.
Yeah. And so like it we can't go scene by scene for this entire movie, but basically like we see over the next like half an hour, I guess, this relationship building between Hogarth and Iron Vin, where they like, because basically Hogarth has found this pet or has found this friend, right? Like this, they've talked many times about how he's a lonely kid, and now he has somebody to spend time with, I was gonna say like relate to. It's like I don't think it's quite what it is, but like be able to explore and experience the world with.
And he wants an adventure. Bolshi is saying, right, there's a massive contrast between the giant's behavior and like the scale of the giant that seems threatening on the basis alone, never mind how what he's doing or what comes after, which leads me to my favorite quote that I found. So we were like researching how Vin Diesel got this role, how did it come up? And we found this, or I found this article where Vin Diesel talks about it. And he says he felt a kinship with the giant. He says, the Iron Giant is misunderstood. His strength is the bane of his existence. And despite the fact that he's designed as a killing machine, he is really as simple as a child. I've always said that I feel like a bull in a china shop. And with the giant, he moves to scratch his back and buildings fall. Actually, I think we come from the same planet. It's just so good. He's just like, Vin Diesel's like, oh, I wanted to take this role because
I am this.
People look at me and they're scared of me because I'm like this big dude. And really, I'm just like a big softie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, we'll probably continue to unpack this over the course of like the different movies that we watch, right? But I think it's like the first, or like, that's an early indicator of who Vin Diesel is as somebody who, like, I think really takes time to examine his masculinity, right? And like understand that there can be vastness to masculinity and like the way he performs his gender and like what he takes from it and what he leaves behind, right? And I think that he, in a lot of his roles and the way that he sort of like carries himself through the world, really tries to uphold that and open that as like a conversation and a pathway for like other actors to take in too, right? Because like he's, you know, especially like as you get into Fast and Furious, but then like other movies, like they're large ensemble casts. And I think like, yeah, especially in Fast and Furious, like we see a real range in how masculinity is performed.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interviews that we read today, he talks about how, or maybe watched, I don't know. He talks about how people talk about action movies as if they are
action heroes.
Heroes, as if like action is the only thing happening, but like, what about the acting that's happening, right? Like, movies aren't just things that blow up. Even action movies, right? They're not just, he's saying, they're not just things that blow up, but there's the connection in between with the characters in between that make them good movies. And, you know, he calls himself a thespian.
Yeah, he doesn't, he like really pushes back against this action hero title that people ascribe to him.
Yeah. So like I think we see that from, you know, this movie and other movies onwards where he's like, it's not just about this like tough guy thing, which he could easily, and in some ways does, capitalize on in his career, but he really is adamant that it's like so much more than that, right? It's like bigger than that. And I think like Bolshe, your discussion or your like examination, so to speak, of the difference between the giant's behavior and the way people perceive him really aligns with Vin Diesel.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like while there's this storyline of Hogarth and the giant really becoming friends and being, yeah, just exploring the world and having fun and like playing around, at the same time, there is this other storyline where, what is it, Kent Mansley, whatever.
Kent Manley. Yeah.
Played by the guy who's always like an evil dad and things, and I just can't remember his name. Right, but like he sees the Iron Giant and is like, this is a threat. This is like, he's a part of the FBI. He's like, this is a threat to national security. And this is going to be my get, right? Like, I am going to capture or destroy this thing that is clearly a weapon, like clearly sent to be like a weapon of mass destruction, and that is going to get me like farther into my career, or like farther into like whatever it is that he's aspiring to, right? And so you know, he yeah, there's like this whole other storyline where he's trying to capture and destroy the Iron Giant. And that's where, like what you were saying, it's like this movie about like this adult trying to ruin a kid's life. Right?
It really feels like that. I mean, first of all, I will say, like, when Kent Manley or whatever first shows up, you're like, this is Mulder. Like, he is in the X-Files.
Oh, yeah.
His whole department is like, you know, going to the things that are unexplainable and like finding out what they are. And I'm like, yes, Mulder in a movie, but then
And
he's
then
like,
very quickly, no, not Mulder.
yeah, he's the
not
fucking
Scully.
worst. He's just the worst. And he, like, you know, he, to the point that he literally rents the room in their house so he can have eyes on this kid. So because he's like, oh, this kid knows about this thing that I'm after, which he doesn't know is the giant, right? He just is like, there's something. And he literally rents a room in their house. He stalks this child.
He watches him fall asleep. They like his bedroom is across from Hogarth's bedroom. He opens and like Hogarth is like trying to sneak out. And he's like, I want to watch you. And he sits at the edge of his bed with his door open, and Hogarth's door is open, and they're both like, like watching each other. Like,
it's a literal 10-year-old child. He follows him. He like nails his window shut. It is, you know, first of all, this guy like has his own masculinity issues. But also, like, sorry, to go back to Vin Diesel, what I was thinking about when you were talking about all this, it's like this concept of the Iron Giant where like people think he's the bad guy when he's like actually trying to be, you know, like whoever he is actually the through line of Vin Diesel's career. We will see this come up in Chronicles of Riddick. We will see this come up in Triple X. We will see this come up in the Fast and Furious movies where it's like people have decided he is the bad guy, but actually he's just trying to live his life and trying to do what he can to get by and like maybe learn more about himself or maybe connect with other people, or maybe, you know, like get back to his life, whatever it is. But this is like actually the through line of every character he plays.
Yeah. You know, and so I think we can start going into thinking about like the sort of second act, or like the emergence of conflict that we see with the giant, right? Where, you know, he is somebody who has no memory of like how he got here, what's going on. But as he and Hogarth are in play together, right, there was a moment. So they're in, they're hiding out in Dean, good guy Dean. They're hiding out in good guy Dean's scrapyard.
Because also Dean is a scrap guy. He like collects
and is also an artist.
Scrap metal and then uses it to make art.
Yeah.
Good, gentleman.
Good guy Dean. So they're in his scrapyard. They're playing around. You know, Hogarth had started introducing like comic books and superheroes and villains to the giant. And so they're playing with Giant being Atomo, who is this scary villainous robot. And Hogarth has like this toy laser gun or something and aims it at the giant.
First of all, though, Giant is like, nope, I'm not going to be Atomo. I'm going to be Superman because he wants to be the good guy. Yeah. And then he aims the gun.
Yeah, so he aims the gun and all of a sudden we see like this flashback happen for the giant, and that's triggered by this visual of a gun being pointed at him, right? And all of a sudden he's remembering like these defensive maneuvers or defensive mechanisms that he has built in, like programmed into him. And so because he is a weapon, right? Like or that's how he was built. He was built to be a weapon.
We don't know by who, we don't know like how this happened for him, but turns out he's a weapon.
Right. And so he, like that part of his programming like takes over, and you know, Hogarth is like, oh man, my toy isn't working. And so he like jumps down off the car and is like trying to make it work. And while that's happening, Giant like shoots these laser beams out of his eyes. right to where Hogarth had been standing. Hogarth wasn't there, so it was like a miss, um, and Dean sees it happening at the same time, and so like runs out to the scrapyard, and Hogarth like had no clue that this was going on, so he gets back up and he like again points the. It's also notable or important to note that like Giant shoots the lasers out of his eyes and is like, wait, hold on, that I'm not a gun, that's not what I do. And he like sort of shakes himself out of it, and then when Dean is there and Hogarth like goes again to shoot again, that visual triggers Giant into being like, nope, gotta get my laser beams coming out of my eyes. And this time Hogarth sees it and is like, what's going on? Dean like grabs him, dashes him away, helps him evade being caught up in these lasers. And I think there was a very small moment, Dean is like, this is bad.
Not
like,
a small moment, it's significant.
Well, no, I mean like time-wise, it was a short moment. He like, this is bad, gotta get Hogarth out of here. And Hogarth like the whole time is just like, what's going on? Like, this is not the Giant that I know, this isn't my friend, like that's something is happening here. And Dean is in this like protective mode of like, no, we just have to get away. But then I think like 30 seconds later, he comes to a realization because Giant has taken Hogarth and is like running with him?
No, Giant just leaves.
Oh yeah, Giant leaves and Hogarth is like, no, I gotta get my friend.
Like, that's our friend. He is good.
Something's happening.
Right. So like there's this kid too who's like, the whole idea is this kid can see that this robot is good because he has childlike wonder and is able to see past like, whatever.
Right. Well, and also like, they've already had this conversation of like, I'm not a gun, like I am not, like I'm Superman, I am like a good robot, right? And like,
and he wants to be
he wants to be, right? And like they understand that about each other. And so, Hogarth is like running after the Giant, and then Dean, again, like 30 seconds later is like, oh wait, this is a defense mechanism. like he only attacks on the defensive.
But like in the meantime, like when Dean accuses the robot of like trying to hurt Hogarth, you can see he immediately is just like crestfallen. He is like, I am so sad that you think that I would try to hurt this kid who is my friend. Like, why would you accuse me of that? And it's very much like internal conflict of like, why did I do that? I don't want to do that. But like, I don't even know what that is. And he literally runs away because he's like, I don't want to be this thing. So I gotta go.
Yeah. So he runs away. Hogarth runs after him. Dean is like, oh no, I have to help Hogarth get back to the Giant because like, you're right, Giant is our friend and like Giant needs help, like, or Giant needs like support to figure out like what's going on right now. Kicks him up on his motorcycle, zooms off, they find Giant.
In the middle of snow, like, also.
No, that's later on.
Oh, okay, but sorry.
Anyway.
Snow on a motorcycle in May.
Yeah.
Is all I remember. And I'm like, who drives a motorcycle without a jacket in the snow? People in Maine. Yeah. But I think like the other thing too, right, is like this Vin Diesel, like Vin Diesel being like this sad giant man, metal man here is like, again, like what he needs is connection, right? Like human connection. And again, we'll see that throughout his career.
Yeah. And so like when we see, and I think like other moments that we then end up seeing like after that incident is like Giant comes back to the scrapyard, is like, and is really caught up in like this thing that's happening for him, right? Or when they go into the forest and he like makes this connection with a deer, and it's really like a tender moment, and then and then the deer is like, okay, I've had my time, I'll like run off now, and like 2 seconds later they hear a gunshot, and the deer is dead, and Giant is learning about death, and I think it's interesting that a child is also then teaching him about death,
Mhm.
right? And it's almost as if like an older child is teaching a younger child about like
Yeah.
life and death and what that looks like, and then and inevitability, and that it's okay. Like, I know that you're really upset about this deer. A thing to know is that everything dies. Like, everyone dies. And you see Giant sort of having this moment of like, you'll die? And Hogan's like, yeah, I will die. And then Giant's like, I die? And I think that's a moment where Hogarth doesn't know. He's like, you might, I don't know.
And then he says souls don't die.
Yeah, he talks about souls and souls not dying, and like, oh my god, this movie.
Really,
it is shocking that I didn't cry.
I really can't believe you didn't cry, honestly. But I think, right, like the whole thing eventually is ultimately this Kent Mansley, whatever. First of all, chloroforms him. Literally chloroforms a child, by the way. He like interrogates him, full interrogation to try to find the giant. Chloroforms him so that he goes to sleep. This is what I'm saying, where his whole thing is to ruin this child's life. Who? What? Anyway, he chloroforms him, then he watches him so that, whatever, because he's like, I called the army's going to be here tomorrow. And so he chloroforms him so he'll go to sleep. They stay up watching each other. Eventually, he does make it out. We find out to warn the giant, but the army gets there and they're all trying to be like, the giant is like friendly. He only reacts defensively. And the army is like, and meanwhile, you have Kent Mansley being like, literally being like, he killed a child. We have to get him. And they end up like targeting him with an atomic bomb.
Yeah. Which just is wild. But yeah, so it like there's like this whole fight, right, where the army is like shooting and trying to destroy Giant then becomes like this machine, this weaponized machine.
We see like what he was really created for.
Yeah, and is trying to destroy the army that's fighting against him. And then we see Hogarth has come back and is trying to stop and like get him to realize, like, remember, you're not a gun. You're Superman, right? Like, you're not a gun. You don't have to kill. Killing is bad, right? And we see Giant like come out of this defensive mode. And then Kent Mansley is still just like, gotta kill the giant. But the general of the army is starting to see like, oh, we need to stop this. Like, this can't be happening. And then, I don't know, Kent grabs the walkie-talkie to the submarine that has a nuclear bomb on it. And it's like, fire the bomb, like, do it. And so then we get into this moment where it's like a minute-long scene where this bomb has been, like, this missile has been shot off, right? And it's going to come to where the giant is, which is on the shore of this town, where the whole town is right next to the giant. And it was really interesting, right? Like, the whole town is just like, nobody's really going for cover because they understand, like,
they're all gonna die.
But we're gonna die. Like,
also,
this is gonna be
right before this scene, the giant saves some children, so they're all on board with the giant at this point. We've like
everyone's
come full
team
circle,
giant.
where like everyone was scared of him, but he's like showed his humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we see like it's this countdown to everybody in this town is going to die, and Giant is also seeing that. He's like, wait, he's looking around, like, everybody is going to die. I'm not a gun. I'm Superman. And so he goes over to Hogarth, like says a goodbye, like, I'm Superman. Like, you stay here. Like, I'm gonna go. You stay here. No following, which is the repeat of what Hogarth had said to him in the very first time that they met.
But Giant didn't listen.
But Giant didn't listen. Hogarth does listen because also he can't fly
Yeah.
the way that Giant can. But it's a really sad moment, and you know, Hogarth even says like, "I love you."
Yeah.
Which again, how I did not cry at any point in this movie is shocking. But so then Giant flies up into the up into space, basically, and collides with this bomb and saves the town and his best friend Hogarth.
Okay, but also if anyone knows what would happen if an atomic bomb explodes in space, please tell us because we don't understand.
I did.
What would happen? Does it create a black hole? Can it actually explode without oxygen? We don't really understand.
Well, and also, like, depending on how far above the Earth's surface it is, like, is there still going to be like an impact?
Yeah. If you understand this, please explain it to us. We would love to know. We do not get it. Oh, yes.
Okay, so it can explode.
It can explode.
Great.
But like, what happens?
Yeah, does it have an impact on the Earth? Does it, or on the Earth's surface? Like, would the town still have had like any damage? Also, he ends up with parts of himself in Iceland.
No way it didn't destroy part of the atmosphere. Yeah.
Well, you know, movie magic, right?
So
talk up the movie magic.
The movie ends right where we like see his parts sort of scattered around the Earth, mostly in Iceland, except this one piece that Hogarth has, and that's how we know he's alive, which is like the beautiful thing. But I also just want to point out that Vin Diesel has a total of 53 words. He says a total of 53 words in this whole movie, and yet he conveys them. It's like really, truly a journey.
He does so much with 53 words, right? And like sort of the same way that we're going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy where he plays Groot, right? And he only says, "I am Groot."
He literally got that role because he did so much with so little with Iron Giant. So like, you know, just saying he did a really great job of conveying all this like literal humanization of this giant metal robot is like, you know, it literally kickstarts his career, helps him eventually get, you know, more voice acting work, which he says he loves. He also does voice acting on video games for his multiple characters. Yeah, who isn't obsessed with Groot coffee? Groot is the cutest. But and I can't wait to talk about Groot. We'll talk about it. It's so good. But so like, you know, I think, and he thinks that he and Giant are one and the same. And it really does like launch this career where he plays all these characters that are supposed to be this like big, tough, masculine men. And really all of them also have so much depth and feeling and are all about their interpersonal connection, which brings us to Vin Diesel. One thing that this is really a Fast and Furious thing, but like I think also carries over into his real life. Vin Diesel is all about family. Mm-hmm. And so we see that in this movie where he becomes essentially family with Hogarth and his mom and Dean. But Vin Diesel in real life is all about family. He is obsessed with his family, I would say, his children, his girlfriend, and also the like family that he created from movies and etc. But and in Fast and Furious, family is very important. They are family films. But so part of our show is always going to include what we are calling a section, Diesel at the Easel, where we showcase art made by all of you.
We're calling it fam art instead of fan art because in honor of number one family man, Vin Diesel.
Number one family man.
And so if you were on before this show got started, like right at the beginning of the stream, You saw the fan art that was made by friend of the
Coffee
show.
can bring it up too.
Probably not right now. We did not make that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. There it is. This is our show art for To Vin It, made by friend of the show,
Tim Wang.
Tim Wang, who made it like
literally in 2
easy
days.
peasy. An incredible artist.
Yeah.
And so if you have fam art that you want to contribute, please send it to either Pop Culture Co-op on Instagram and all the social. I think that's just what we're called, Pop Culture Co-op.
Or to either of us.
You can send it to us on our Instagrams. My Instagram is just Moody Selfies.
And Whiskey Business 77.
Whiskey without an E.
Oh yeah, no E in whiskey.
We want to be able to highlight all the art that is inspired by your deep appreciation or newfound appreciation or inspiration by number one, Vin Diesel.
Yeah. So like, neither of us have. Okay, originally the show was going to be called Diesel the Easel, and we were going to do an art segment, but like, neither of us have any artistic ability.
Yeah, we start to be more realistic about who we are as people.
Truly at all, we cannot do, neither of us can art. Miriam, who is in this chat, can attest. I have very limited crafting abilities, no artistic abilities. So it's not going to be from us, but you all can create art, and we will showcase it in our Diesel at the Easel segment about the fam art that we get. We would love to showcase it every episode.
Mm-hmm.
So if each of you send in one art, it could be anything, right? We've got this digital drawing. You can draw with color pencils. You could print out a coloring page and color it. You could make a collage. We would love a collage. I'm thinking a la middle school crush on Vin Diesel collage. Like, please send us all the art you create so that we can showcase it.
Yeah. Or if there are questions that you have about Vin Diesel, any fun facts that you want us to share on upcoming episodes, let us know. This is a bi-weekly show, which means it happens every other week.
Yeah.
I think last night we learned that, the other day. Last night?
I don't know what you're going to say.
On Big Time. Last night we learned what bi-weekly meant. Had confirmation around it is not a week. It is not every week and a half. It is every other week, every 2 weeks. So that's when we'll be on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Not at 7 a.m.
At 7 a.m. That would be literally impossible for us as humans. And yeah, I think unless there's anything else, I want to make sure that.
Also, Miriam, that's not targeted at you with the collage. That's targeted at everyone. Please send us your collages. Yeah, and I think we have many facts about Vin Diesel. We are really just getting, follow us at Pop Culture Co-op on Instagram. Follow us at Pop Culture Co-op here on Twitch so you can be involved. We have so many different shows happening. They are all amazing. Right before us was Dara's Miscellaneous Pop Culture show. It's really great. Please check out all the shows we have. And also, if you have thoughts about other things you want to know about Vin Diesel or other things we should include in our hour about Vin Diesel, please let us know. This is our first show. Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining us for our first show. We love feedback. Don't be mean. but we want to know what you think. So you can let us know. And next time, we'll be talking about Pitch Black.
Yeah, so we're going to be starting off the Riddick series.
Diving right into some classic Vin Diesel sci-fi where he plays another misunderstood and moody and also tough exterior character. It's gonna get weird. Get weird.
Yeah, so you have 2 weeks basically to watch Pitch Black along with us, and we'll talk about it in 2 Sundays.
And we would love to know in the chat along with this, what you think about these movies. So please tell us. And if you want to be a guest, let us know.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of To Vin It. And we'll see you in the chat in many other shows in between. And then again in 2 weeks for our next show.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Yeah.
Bye.